हेलो एवरीवन एंड वेलकम टू इंग्लिश क्लब। आज हम फिर हाजिर हैं आपके साथ एक और नए ट्यूटोरियल के साथ एंड टुडेज टॉपिक is from class 10 CBSE supplementary reader book. The first chapter is a short story and the title of the story is A Triumph of Surgery and the writer's name is James Herriot. तो हम क्विकली एक बार समरी करेंगे इस चैप्टर का, लेकिन उससे पहले आई वांट यू टू focus on some important features. The narrative is in first person. So the narrator of the story is the writer himself, James Herriot. When we say first person, that means the narrator is directly addressing himself as I. Alright, so you will continuously see throughout the text the usage of the pronoun I is there. The second important feature is the title. A Triumph of Surgery is an ironical title, but then before we understand how exactly it's important कि हमें storyline पता हो, तो उससे पहले हम एक बार story करेंगे and then we will come back to this feature and we will discuss about the title. And the last but not the least, one more feature that I want you to pay attention to while I'm telling you the summary is about the importance of health. So this has been highlighted throughout the story how we should, take care of our health, diet, exercise, and it's not just for human beings, it's for our pets as well. After discussing these features, I would also like to highlight the important characters which are there in the story. जैसे मैंने आपको पहले बताया था कि फर्स्ट पर्सन नैरेटिव में है ये स्टोरी, तो जो नरेटर है वो एक कैरेक्टर है स्टोरी में. So the narrator James Herriot is one of the first characters whom we come across in our story, and the second character is Tricky. Tricky is a very important character. It's actually a main character of the story. Tricky is a small dog. And the third most important character in the story is Mrs. Pumphrey. Mrs. Pumphrey is the dog's mistress and she's a rich lady. So her character has been shown as, because she's very rich. So even though she has a pet whose name is Tricky, she always pampers it a lot and overfeeds the dog. And at the same time, a lot of toys and coats of different weather are available to the dogs. It has a complete wardrobe to itself. Now, coming back to the story, the very first scene that we see is the narrator who tells that when he pulled off his car at the market, he comes across Mrs. Pumphrey with her dog Tricky. However, the narrator looks at Tricky and is very, very surprised. The narrator is shocked to see that Tricky has put on so much weight that he compares Tricky to a bloated sausage. Tricky is hardly able to move, is very lazy because of the overweight, and is sulking. At the same time, the eyes are bloodshot. So when the narrator, after looking at the dog, is shocked, Mrs. Pumphrey tries to hurriedly explain that Tricky had not been feeling well and it was low on energy. So what she did was she started feeding Tricky even between its meal time. So she's basically overfeeding the dog. Apart from the meals, also in between the meals, she feeds the dog, and not only that, she also serves cakes and chocolates. And by the conversation that they both have, we see that the doctor has already told her prior to this to take care of the dog's diet because it has overweight. Now, the lady explains that because it's really hard for her to refuse the dog and she rather thinks that the dog is suffering from malnutrition, that is the reason that she's feeding the dog a lot more. However, the doctor, though he's very kind and gentle, but at the same time he's very true to his duty. The narrator we come across as a person who is dedicated to his work and very sincere. So he tries to sound a little strict, और वो मिसेस पम्फ्री को एक वार्निंग देते हैं कि इफ़ अगर अब डाइट का ख्याल नहीं रखा उन्होंने ट्रिकी का, तो ट्रिकी कैन बी वेरी वेरी इल. ऑल्सो मिसेस पम्फ्री पूछते हैं कि कितनी एक्सरसाइज ट्रिकी कर रहा है, तो वी कम टू नो दैट No, Tricky has hardly been going on any exercises only, except for a little walks. Now, the narrator tells us that few days have passed, and after few days, as he was expecting, Mrs. Pumphrey, Doctor, who's the narrator, calls him that Tricky has fallen very, very ill, and the narrator goes to visit Tricky and finds that Tricky has been avoiding food for some time, which is very different from Tricky's usual habits. Tricky could never refuse any meal, and no matter what time of the day it was, day or night, at any hour, Tricky would joyfully and happily accept any meal. But then now, because Tricky is very ill, Tricky is vomiting and suffering from severe illness. So the doctor thinks that if I do not take any action at this time, the things will worsen, the things will deteriorate. So, trying to be strict, the narrator tells Mrs. Pumphrey that we will have to hospitalize Tricky at least for 14 days, which is fortnight, 2 weeks. And if we do not do that, Tricky might fall very, very sick. Now, listening to this, Mrs. Pumphrey, who's very affectionate with the dog and is very caring towards dog, and in her care, she herself is not aware that actually she is harming the dog's health. But then there wasn't any option for her, and the narrator tries to be strict and takes the dog with him to get it hospitalized. But while he is trying to drive away in his car with the dog, all the servants bring all kinds of stuff which belongs to Tricky, like all his coats, which are according to different weather. It's bowls, different bowls for different times of the day, lunch bowl, breakfast bowl, and toys and etc. But the narrator tries to hurriedly drive away. Now we come to the scene where the house of the narrator is there, and many other dogs have been kept there at the surgery. And now, because Tricky has never been into such kind of an environment, at the same time, Tricky, when arrives here, is very, very sick. So, Tricky is just feeling lazy and too tired, and the narrator makes up the bed for Tricky, and Tricky lies down there. All the other dogs are very excited for the new inmate, and they come around Tricky, sniff, and then finding and realizing that the new member is uninteresting and boring, they head outwards. But then slowly and gradually, as the day passes, for the first 2 days, Tricky is kept strictly on water. No food is allowed, and from third day onwards, Tricky seems to start eating, and the time is common for the meal. Every dog is given a bowl, and all the dogs are, when they are served, they try to eat fast so that they are not left behind, and Tricky sorts of starts enjoying it. Even during the day, out in the garden, Tricky starts playing with other dogs, and slowly and gradually they develop bonding, and they develop friendship with each other. As a result, when 14 days pass, Tricky is completely transformed. He it looks so healthy, and his muscles are hard. At the same time, it's energetic. All this while, Mrs. Pumphrey kept on calling the narrator, the doctor, to know what is the status of Tricky's health. She would call several times in a day, but the narrator would make sure that he is keeping Tricky as per his routine, as per the diet prescribed by him. Now, when 14 days are over and Tricky is healthy and fit, the narrator calls Mrs. Pumphrey and tells her that she can finally get Tricky discharged. Listening to this, Mrs. Pumphrey, in a short span of time, she arrives in her luxurious car at the house, and before she could get out of the car, the narrator hurries towards her and tells her that you can just sit here and मैं जाऊंगा, मैं ट्रिकी को लेके आता हूँ आपके लिए. So Tricky को he brings back outside in his arms, And when Tricky sees its mistress, it climbs over to her lap and starts caressing her and licking all over her face, to which the Mrs. Pumphrey is completely surprised to see such transformation in Tricky. And to her wonder, she just tells the narrator while the car starts to drive away that this is really a miracle of surgery, or the triumph of surgery. And here the story ends. Now you would understand here by going through the story that the mistress of the dog is actually responsible for the bad health of the dog, and she in her care is not realizing this. She thinks that the dog is suffering from malnutrition, and rather she has to feed it more. However, the doctor at the same time is a wonderful person who is sincere, who is kind, understanding as well, and dedicated to his duty also. He ensures that he takes timely action, because if he wouldn't have got Tricky hospitalized at this time, maybe in future the things would have worsened. His health would have gone really, really bad, and maybe there might have been a chance for the surgery that they might have had to operate Tricky. But actually, the irony of the title is that without any medicines during these 14 days, just by following the proper routine, keeping Tricky on a proper diet, not feeding him too much, and also Tricky making sure that Tricky does ample amount of exercise all day. It used to play with all the other dogs, so it exercises so much. In just a matter of 14 days, Tricky is completely transformed. And this is the triumph of the dedication, of the goodwill, of the kind-heartedness of the narrator, James Herriot. And ironically, the title is termed as the Triumph of Surgery, because the mistress, Mrs. Pumphrey, when she suddenly sees Tricky, उसको realize नहीं होता कि ये अचानक 14 days में इतना transformation कैसे हो सकता है, because Tricky was overweight, obese, and suddenly अब 14 days के बाद it has hard muscles, it's energetic. So she thinks that maybe this is a result of some surgery. That is the reason this sudden change has come. So now you would better understand why the title is termed of the story is The Triumph of Surgery. And at the same time, we learn some important factors here which we can take as a moral of the story, that if we take the right action at the right time, then maybe we could improve the situation and make sure that it doesn't worsen in future. For example, health. Our health at the same time, if properly taken care at the right time, then we might be able to avoid any future worse situations that might happen. So this is one of the very I find this moral very interesting, that it's like a lesson not only for pets, for humans, for everyone, that we should take care of our health, we should take care of our diet, we should take care of we should do proper exercise. Physical exercise is also important at the same time, and very beautifully this story portrays all this through just a trivial incident of Tricky falling ill because of overfeeding. Well, with this, I would like to finish this video, and I'm sure that you're following our videos. Please stay tuned, because you will get more content, obviously, in the coming videos. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this page. I wish you very well and good health to everyone. Thank you.